Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Hart, and today I'll be breaking down the 4-game NBA slate we have here on Tuesday night. 100K to first on DraftKings, so a ton of money for us to win, to get that chance of a takedown. So I'm going to be going over my best spin-up plays, mid-range plays, and value dart throws to help us take down that 100K to first. So if you're new to the channel, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. Now let's get into the slate breakdown. As always, follow me on Twitter at HartDFS, as you can see here. Put up all my plays there, talk DFS, all that good stuff. Quick look back at my lineup from last night. I went with Maxey, Paul George, Barnes, Portis, Sabonis, Banton, Harris, and Clarkson. Obviously, a lot of news came out yesterday before the slate started that really shook up the whole slate. I talked about how I really liked Paul George, Sabonis, Portis as my locks, as well as Pascal Siakam. I switched to Scotty Barnes over Pascal once we got that news that Fred VanVleet was obviously out. Embiid got ruled out, so I went to Maxey and Harris. Faded Harden just because I was just hoping that he'd get, maybe 50 fantasy points at most. Kind of rely on Maxey and Harris to do their thing. It kind of worked out. Maxey, obviously, 37.5 was great. Paul George, 6.6% of people faded Paul George against Houston with Kawhi Leonard out. Really? I mean, 75. Obviously, got a little bit lucky with his 6 steals, but it's Paul George, 9,300. People got absolutely burned by him, and I'm happy about that. Scotty Barnes is fantastic. They switched him to point guard when Fred VanVleet is ruled out, so that was a great play there. Bobby Portis was great. Had a little bit lower ownership. Sabonis fouled out. Just foul trouble just absolutely has ruined this guy so far this season. That's super frustrating because obviously, once again, he was on pace to absolutely smash the slates at pretty low ownership. Banton, I kind of got stuck here between Clarkson and, so my original thought was if John Morant gets ruled out, I had Clarkson here at the same time slot where I could have switched off to Tyus Jones, and that, I would have paid down for, I was going to pay down for someone else as well. And I was also taking that risky shot that, Fred VanVleet out. Banton was kind of the backup point guard. He was seeing about, 5 to 10 minutes at most off the bench. I was like, hey, maybe I'll get extended to 15. Unfortunately, Ja got ruled in, so I left Clarkson in there. He did, solid. And then Banton didn't get any run, which is super surprising. Because he got run previous games, but he got like the last 3 minutes of the game. Was able to get, a few points, which did help out. But yeah, that was my lineup. Pretty solid. Unfortunately, Sabonis was, garbage when it comes to foul trouble, and then obviously getting stuck with 3K Banton was not the best, but I'm still able to cash. Winning lineup was Kyrie, Melton, Scotty, Laurie, Koloko, Maxey, Martin, and then Paul George. Now for this slate breakdown, I'll be going game by game. Golden State, we know most of the offense is coming from Steph Curry, 9,600. Price really hasn't moved. It's just because, he has a pretty high floor, and his ceiling is kind of limited right now. As I said, you really need him to pick up the peripheral department stats when it comes to those rebounds, assist, blocks, and steals. Because if he's hitting those, then he's easily going to be able to smash. 9,600. There is still a little bit of, obviously there's a very high ceiling for Steph if he's hitting his shots. Hasn't really had a good shooting game yet. One of those breakout games that we've seen from Steph. Highest points so far has been 34. So, he's always in play to get you, 40, 50 real life points. So I have a good amount of interest in Steph here against Miami. Obviously, a little bit of a tougher matchup, but don't mind that. Wiggins, has cooled down the past 2 games. Minutes are obviously secure. He's shooting the ball a ton, so I have some interest in Wiggins at 6,900. Poole looks okay, priced up just because of Clay getting ruled out, so Poole obviously had a solid game, back-to-back solid games for Poole here. A little bit of a tougher matchup. Poole will probably come off the bench again. 6,600 doesn't look like the best price for him, but obviously he still has upside. Draymond Green, 5,700 is just kind of there for me. Always makes for an intriguing tournament play. Seeing about 30 minutes now with those kind of the minutes limit lifted. So he does have some upside. Obviously, he's gonna get you that poor man's triple double of maybe 10, 10, and 10. Get you some blocks and steals. So if you want to go there, I don't mind it. 5,700. Clay, I'll mention him just because he's always gonna have low ownership. the minutes are starting to come up, so he could definitely, get very hot from the field, go off for like 25, 30, 35 real life points. So I don't mind taking a shot on Clay here at 5,500. This is kind of aiming to, or looking like a slate where, you can definitely get risky because there's not a lot of like fantastic like jump out of the box plays for everyone to kind of flock to. So you're gonna have to make your own risk reward situations on this slate. Come on, Looney, 4,100 looks okay. Not much there for me. And then Wiseman minutes came down a little bit, but gonna see probably 15 minutes, maybe 20 at most. So he's a decent point per minute guy. That really does it on the Golden State side. Kind of just the main guys at the top for me. On the Miami side, good amount of interest in Jimmy Butler. Talked about how he likes stepping up in those big games. And we saw 59.5 from him in that last game against the Warriors. Obviously, he had 6 steals. He's a good, steal per game guy. But obviously, 6 steals is a little bit out of the ordinary. So 8,400 looks pretty solid for Jimmy. Bam, 7,400 looks great. Minutes have been very solid the past 2 games, 38, 38, 49 fantasy points against Golden State, and then 40. I say he does have a little bit of a ceiling just because he doesn't shoot the ball that, a ton, not getting that double-double upside right now. So this looks okay for me at 7,400. Obviously, it's a great matchup against that small front court of the Warriors, but Bam is known just to have just some god-awful games, getting some foul trouble. So I don't know what to make of Bam today. He makes for an intriguing tournament play, but he'll definitely have some ownership. Tyler Hero, 7,200. I think it's slightly too pricey for me. He's playing the minutes. Shot attempts are there. He's been pretty decent this year at getting those rebounds and assists. But he is, heavily scoring dependent. So really need him to do well when it comes to either scoring the ball or, going off with those peripheral stats. Otherwise, 7,200 is just a little too pricey for me. I'd almost rather take a shot on Kyle Lowry, which sounds disgusting, but 6,100, he's actually been pretty solid this year when it comes to doing a little bit of everything. The minutes have actually been solid for him. He was limited in minutes last year for some reason. But yeah, Kyle Lowry has actually been pretty decent, 3 straight games of 33 plus fantasy points. So don't mind him there at 6,100. Strus has seen a ton of minutes off the bench, about, 32 minutes past 2 games, 5,100. He's a solid rebounder, shooting the ball a ton recently. So if he catches fire, 5,100 for Strus is great. So I think he'd be my favorite play from this game. Caleb Martin looks decent. Okay value, played 4,900. Gabe Vincent going to get that backup point guard run, playing about 20 minutes. One of those guys, you could definitely jam in a low owned value play. Not going to kill you. Would hope that, Kyle Lowry gets in foul trouble, so Gabe Vincent gets more run. That really does it on the first game. Second game, Chicago and Brooklyn. We got DeRozan at the top, 8,500. I love DeRozan right here in this spot against Brooklyn. We want to attack the Brooklyn team because they're just bad at defense. I played, DeRozan the past 2 games, 33 points. You're like, oh, that's fantastic. 1 assist, rebound, 1 steal, 37.5 fantasy points. Absolute snowflake at low ownership. Go back to him. Low ownership against Philly. 20 points in the first quarter or in the first half. Only gets 4 in the second half. 32 fantasy points. So he's one of those guys who can absolutely screw you by just getting 0 peripheral stats. And so 8,500 is slightly risky to play him, but I just love this matchup against Brooklyn. Vooch looks like a very solid matchup. Vooch is very hot and cold, as you guys can kind of see. He'll go off for a big game, 18 and 23, follows it up against, fantastic matchup against Indiana, goes off 28 fantasy points. Another fantastic matchup against San Antonio Spurs. They got blown out, came back a little bit in the end, but 19. And then against Philly, obviously Embiid was out, but 23-19. So he's very hot and cold. Looks like a great spot against Brooklyn, but we never know with Vooch. Zach LaVine, obviously that's key news to keep an eye on because if he's in, I do still like DeRozan, and I would like Zach a good amount. If he's out, obviously DeRozan almost becomes a must play, and then Vooch becomes a very solid play. Everyone below them, maybe you could take a dart throw on Io if he's in. Caruso would be solid if he starts again. Not the best point per minute guy, but can definitely get you there at 4,300. Jalen Green, once again, not a good point per minute guy, but can do a little bit of everything. You could definitely take a dart throw on him at 3,500 if he's going to get solid run. Same thing with Pat Williams. Just kind of have to keep an eye on the Kobe White and the Zach LaVine news here and IO news to be able to get to the best plays on the Brooklyn side. Obviously, Durant and Kyrie look fantastic. Prefer Durant a little bit more, even though Kyrie's been very solid the past few games. We keep an eye on this Ben Simmons news. Obviously, they held him out, so that means Kyrie and KD had the ball in their hands a little bit more and elevated their ceiling. So if that happens again, definitely want to get back to either one of them, or if not both of them. If Ben Simmons is back, I don't mind taking a shot on Ben Simmons. He's been trending up, looks very solid. The minutes will be there. Claxton, if Ben Simmons is back, interest comes down, but if Ben Simmons is out, do have a good amount of interest in Claxton. As I said, he's kind of a high energy guy. Not playing a ton of minutes, kind of seeing about 30 at most, but as we saw last game, can get you those blocks, rebounds, assists, can score as well. Had a very solid game at 42.2 fantasy points. Royce O'Neal, solid value play, 4,800. Does a little bit of everything, plays a ton of minutes. Just hope he hits his shots. Seth Curry's still out, I believe. Joe Harris saw a good amount of run, about almost 30 minutes. He's more of a shooter, but can definitely get hot there at 4,000, especially against the Bulls, who give up a ton of three-pointers. Patty Mills seen about 5 minutes off the bench. Sharp, backup center, seen about 10. So I don't really have to go to any of those guys. Orlando, OKC, Paolo looks great, 7,900. Just shooting the ball a ton. He's the main guy on the Magic. So yeah, good amount of interest. Paolo against OKC looks like a great matchup for him. He'll be very popular today. I have a good amount of interest in Wendell. He's obviously the second fiddle to Paolo, but he's one of those guys that can easily get a double-double. Looks great in this matchup against OKC. Franz, point forward. Obviously hasn't been great the past 2 games, 6,500. Okay price for him. I do have a good amount of interest in Franz if Jalen Suggs is ruled out. If he's in and he's full go, do have a good amount of interest in Suggs, 5,900. If he's half go, limited on minutes, you could definitely still take that shot on Franz, but I'd kind of just stay away from that. Bol will be super popular, 5,700. He's gotten a ton of run the past 3 games. Looks like he'll still continue to get that run. Double-double last game. He's, I think, top 3 in blocks in the league right now. So he's obviously very good at that. It just comes down to him scoring the ball, getting those rebounds, which he's done. So really like Bol, 5,700. He looks very, very solid. RJ Hampton, we'll see about 20 minutes off the bench, especially if Suggs is back. Maybe RJ will float back down to about 15 minutes, but Suggs is still out. You can definitely take a flyer here in RJ Hampton, 5,200. Obviously, the minutes aren't secure, but he's a decent point per minute guy if he's hitting his shot. Terrence Ross, always a tournament play, can definitely get hot from the field. Otherwise, he's going to tank your lineup. Chuma, seen some run off the bench with all those guys injured. If they're back, Chuma, I'd say he's out of play, but you can definitely take a start throwing him if they're running at the same lineup and, those guys are still out. Bobamba, seen about 15 minutes. Don't think you have to force that. OKC side, SGA. Love me some SGA. Going to be super popular today. Probably the highest spin-up player because his price really hasn't moved. He's been fantastic, averaging 54 fantasy points a game here. Shooting the ball a ton, 27, 23, 22, 24, 23. And he's shooting it very, very well. He's a guy who gets to the free throw line. So yeah, not much to say besides SGA looks fantastic. Lou Dort, 5,600. Price looks pretty decent. Kind of has a ceiling with SGA in there, but obviously can get hot from the field, can do a little bit when it comes to the peripheral stats. So I don't mind it. 5,600, not the best, not the worst for him. Him and SGA, their minutes are secure. And then after that, it's an absolute crapshoot. Trey Man's seen about 25 minutes. Don't mind getting to him at 5,300. Wiggins, seen about 30. Looks okay. Poku, seen about 25 the past 2 games. It's just an absolute crapshoot. Baisley, seen about 25. I guess out of this group of, under 5,000, I'd prefer Baisley maybe, but then JRE, seen about, minutes are trending down. Jalen Williams is back, minutes trending up, 27. It's just an absolute crapshoot. I guess my favorite play would be Jalen Williams. Obviously, he did get 4 steals, so that really helped out his fantasy score, but 27 minutes, he's in one of those, point forwards that can kind of do a little bit of everything, so I'd like him a good amount as a good value play at 3,900. Kendrick Williams, saying about 20 minutes, so it's just an absolute crapshoot. They pretty much play like a 15-man rotation, besides Lou Dort and SGA, who play very solid runs. So I prefer Jalen Williams, who's going to be super popular in Baisley, but would rather just stick with, SGA and maybe Lou Dort. In the last game, Minnesota, Phoenix, we have Towns at the top 8-8. It looks very solid here in this matchup. No Ayton, so Towns looks great. Rudy Gobert looks okay. Just never like getting into Rudy. Cooling off the past 4 games, past 4 out of 5, he's really cooled off. So 8,200 looks okay for him. Prefer Anthony Edwards. He's going to be the leader of this team at some point over Cat. I do believe that. He's shooting the ball a ton. He's very hot and cold. He can definitely have a fantastic game, and the next game he can absolutely shoot terribly. So even with that, I do like him a good amount, 8,100 in this matchup. D'Lo, very hot and cold as well. One game he'll go for 42.5. Next game he'll go for 23. So even at the price of 7K, discounted compared to those other 3, I still think I prefer Anthony Edwards. Noel came back down to earth. I played him 10 minutes, 1 of 8, 2 fantasy points. After starting off the season, 20 fantasy points or more in every game. So you can definitely run it back with him. It is a little bit questionable just because Kyle Anderson is back, so he did eat up some usage. He only played 12 minutes, but it did hurt Noel a little bit. Jaden McDaniels seen some run, not a high usage guy, but seeing a ton of minutes. If he can stay out of foul trouble, would make for an okay value play. Torian Prince seen about 20 minutes, not a high usage guy, but if he gets hot, he can definitely get you there. And then McLaughlin, he was questionable, didn't play, but he'll see about 15 minutes off the bench if he's in. Booker looks great, 9,000 in this matchup. Obviously, a little bit of a limited ceiling just because he's very score independent, but he can easily get you there, especially at 9,000. Paul looks okay. The price seems about right. Not shooting the ball a ton this year. More, everything's basically coming from assists. So he looks decent, 7,700. Would rather pay, would rather get 2 other guys really. Don't have a ton of interest in Paul. Aiden's out. Bridges is going to play a ton of minutes. Just doesn't shoot the ball a ton, and everything's kind of going through Booker, but he could definitely get you there with some blocks and steals. So decent amount of interest in Bridges there at 6,200. Biyombo looks okay. Very foul prone, so it's very hard to trust him going up against Gobert and Cat. Cam Johnson played a lot better the past 2 games. Score independent, but can definitely get you some rebounds as well. So he looks okay here there at 5,400. Jock, prefer him over Biyombo. Another foul prone guy, but he looks to get involved offensively. Better offensive player than Biyombo. So I have some interest in Jock there at 5,000. Both those centers will be very popular as value plays. Centers look very weak today, so I don't mind taking a stance on, paying up for a solid center. And then Payne, see about 15 to 20 minutes off the bench. Looks okay. He's done very well the past, it's 3 games, but don't really trust that, especially that price. A little too pricey for me. Torrey Craig, if he's back, does eat into some minutes for Cam Payne. And I guess Cam Payne a little bit, but mostly Cam Johnson and Miles Bridges. He would make for an okay play of 3,700. Was seen about 15 to 20 minutes. Could get you there. Could make for a risky dart throw value play. Damian Lee has seen about 15 minutes off the bench. I don't think to do that. Yeah, and that does it for the slate breakdown. I guess some of my go-to plays for this slate would probably be, as of right now, obviously we have to wait on a ton of the news, but I do really like DeRozan a good amount. Like me some Apollo. Obviously those two will be kind of, semi-chalky. Let's go for a less chalky player here. Let's see here. Well, we'll fill in one more chalky piece real fast. We'll put in Jalen Williams, and then who else do I like? I like KD. I mean, kind of, 4 chalky players, but that's my core 4 as of right now. Obviously, have to wait on the injury news, but that's my core 4 going into the slate tonight. Love the matchup of KD versus Chicago. Love the run back with DeRozan. Jalen Williams makes for a solid value piece, even though the minutes are kind of risky. And then Paolo has just a fantastic matchup against OKC. So that's my core 4. If you guys like the video, hit the subscribe button, hit that like button. I'll see you guys in the next slate breakdown. Peace.